Good evening and welcome to the Town of Los Gatos Town Pension and OPEB Trust Oversight Committee meeting of June 4th, 2024. This meeting is now called to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Risto?
Here.
Councilmember Rennie?
Here.
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hudas?
Here.
Mayor Badami?
Here. Our first item is consent items, items 1 through 3. So I'm looking to see if there are any members of the committee that wish to have an item pulled. I see no hands raised. I will look to the public and see if there's any hands raised on Zoom where somebody might want to comment. There are no hands raised. I will close. There is a hand raised? There is no hand raised. Okay. I will close public comment and look for a motion on the consent items. Councilmember Risto.
Thank you. I move to approve consent items 1 through 3.
Do I have a second? Councilmember Moore.
Second.
All right, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
You have to do roll call.
Yeah, roll call, please. Matthew, Councilmember Hudas, Vice Mayor Hudas, you have your hand up on the consent item, or?
No, I was voting yes. Sorry.
Okay, we need a roll call.
Councilmember Risto?
Aye.
Councilmember Rennie?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hudas?
Aye.
Mayor Badami?
Aye. Passes unanimously. At this time, we will open verbal communications where members of the public are welcome to address the committee on matters that are listed on the agenda. Do we have any hands raised on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
All right, I will close verbal communications and move to other business. And I will look to Ms. Anvari for a report.
Good evening. Gita Ungvari, Finance Director. The item in front of you to receive the actual presentation of the CalPERS analysis of the 6/30/2022 valuation and identified amortization basis for future potential additional discretionary payments. Actually, the actuarial from Faster and Faster might be able to join us later, but because he's in another council meeting. But the town is hiring Faster and Faster and former Bartle every year, just review our CalPERS report and just provide some additional information for us while we are looking in the future. And the report was provided to the Finance Commission, and the actuarial Doug Pryor presented to the Finance Commission this detail in this presentation in details. I'm not attempting to provide his presentation because this kind of presentation was given to the council every year and to the Oversight Board. But this is the analysis that the town uses to determine future years. So we work directly with the actuarial, and those are the rates what we build into the budget, what you see in the forecast. So the basis of this analysis to see what CalPERS reported, how we are projecting in the future, and based on then we are setting our rates. And all the slides kind of review that information, but I would like to go and focus on slide 19, page 19, which we every year we ask the actuary to make us some assumption. If we have a $1 million, how much we would save, and what's the best way to use that money if we want to give it to additional money for CalPERS. And slide 19 show that information. And there are two option analyze, either paying into the miscellaneous plan or the safety plan. And in both plan, what would be our best or savings on long-term or short-term based on if we are using and paying on the shortest base or we are going to pay on a longest base. And the numbers, you can see that if we choose, for example, the miscellaneous plan has a longest date in 2013, and we pay down that base in our estimated interest saving, it's almost $853,000. And if we go to the next slides, for the safety plan, our savings would be $1 million if we use their longest base that the actuarial identified. So when this information was presented to the Finance Commission general observation and recommendation for the town council was that the town should put the money where the maximize the savings. And in this case, it would be the safety plan longest base with $1 million. And the Finance Commission also recommended that since the ad hoc committee is working on this item, that further an additional, if additional money would be identified, then they would give an additional recommendation for town council where that money should be paid. So the item in the for the council to consider the oversight board whether the money what's existing right now in the pension trust whether it should be paid to CalPERS or not, and if it would be paid, which plan we should pay and which base we should pay down. And just iterate again, the Finance Commission recommended just pay down the base, which would provide the biggest saving for the town, which is the longest base for the safety plan. And currently, one additional information that currently the trust has a little bit over $2 million, and the actuary also provided that analysis that if we pay down the $2.18 million that we currently have in the CPPT trust, that would provide $2.259 million savings. And that's staff presentation, and I am available for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Councilmember Rennie.
So what I didn't see in here, and I could have missed it, is a comparison. You've stated that we'll save money with CalPERS if we put it into CalPERS, but if we leave it in the CEPT 2 investment that it's the 115 trust that it's in now, how much would we save if we left it there for the same amount of time? I don't think that's in the report, but I think it's significant because it's really, we're talking about what's the delta between the two, and there's a risk difference between the two ways we go. Another way to answer it, if you could, is what's the expected return in the CalPERS fund versus what's the expected return in the current 115 trust that we're using? I believe it's a 1.5% difference, about, from memory from a long time ago.
So the currently or CPP trust, the March the data, most recent data, or we had a negative return for the month, but we have a positive year-to-date return for the fiscal year-to-date. But if we go to CPPT strategy 2, what the town is using, the strategy 2 is the more conservative approach. So it's probably I cannot tell you the exact, I don't have in front of me what would be the overall pension trust return. But definitely there is a big risk because if we send the money to CalPERS, that money is not available for anything else, so we cannot, it won't be returned for us. And I think that's a bigger risk.
And that's what I'm trying to get to, is what is the risk return difference between the two, right? We're taking more risk to get 1% or 1.5% more. So I don't think it's as simple as saying we're going to we're going to save $1 million because if we left it in a lower risk one, we might save 900,000, but have more flexibility with our money, and that I think that's important to consider. I'll let others ask questions.
Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I was reading the staff report. It looks like we discussed this briefly when we talked about the budget. The question is fundamentally, what is staff's concern about following the recommendation of the Finance Commission?
Keeping the we cannot predict the future, so the CalPERS and the CPPT trust return, we cannot predict how it's going to behave, but most possibly it's going to behave in the same fashion, even if it's a little percentage difference. However, if we pay the money to CalPERS, then that money is not available. It's not available for the town. If we leave the money in the trust, that we might that money might be available for other pension costs as needed. So I think the council has more control if we keep the money in our CPPT trust, even moving between different risk levels between the trust.
And if I may, Mayor, it may also be a matter of timing. So right now, the Finance Commission is recommending that we put the full trust amount, over $2 million, directly into CalPERS, which is certainly one option for the committee to consider. However, by doing that, then that money is essentially paying down a basis, which is fine and helpful in the long term. But given some of our short-term challenges, the council may be a little bit early in the calendar year to be making this kind of decision, just given some of the uncertainties and other risks that the Finance Commission brought to the council's attention with their recommendations on the town budget, given that we still have some unknowns in terms of future costs, and we have some unknowns as to how those are going to be paid. And when we have money in the trust, we have a little bit more flexibility for responding to those unknowns. So again, it may be a matter of timing that the committee might say, you know, we like the recommendation of the Finance Commission, but until some of these other risks are resolved, it might be a little bit early to take this jump at this particular time. So that just something else for your consideration.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that consideration, what would be the time that town staff would recommend us looking at this again if we were not to follow the Finance Commission recommendation tonight?
So staff would recommend to look at it at mid-year, because by that time we see how we close the fiscal year, and some of the unknown factors will be known as well.
So when could you give us a date when?
I think when we review at the mid-year report, when we have the mid-year numbers available, which is when we have our final in December, when we have the final half the year closed with the ACFR. It would be December.
December? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rennie.
Could the clerk put up slide 67? Is that possible, or 68? This is my favorite thing to point out on this, but I don't know if I've pointed it out to all of these council members from years ago, though.
And I don't know if you refer to those when it really shows that how little the curve shifts.
That's exactly
yes.
what I want to show, but I
yes.
also want to show how fast the curve is climbing in the very near future, and that's the risk that we need to think about. Shifting the curve this little bit isn't removing the risk.
And it would be 21, slide 21 for one plan and 22, because we had a bigger
Okay.
set of slide and attachment 2. So if the clerk can pull 21 or 22, it's very similar fashion, the two slides.
In our iPad, it's page 67. Yeah, that's the one. So I just wanted the council to think about how fast the payment, and this is just miscellaneous. So it's starting this year. We're at about $4 million we have to make in payments, and it's rapidly climbing. And you see it climbs all the way to $6 million. So it goes up another 50%. That's the risk we need to think about. And that same thing's going to be happening on the safety plan. So how are we going to absorb those larger payments that are coming? And potentially having money in an IRS 115 trust allows us to pay it when we're hitting the peak of that, when we're under the most stress. So this is a risk that we need to think about when we're making this decision.
So with that, I'm hearing that you want to leave it in the trust and maybe reconsider in December? Councilmember Rennie?
Yeah, what I heard the Finance Commission say, and even the commissioner that made the motion, was he didn't completely understand the total risks in the town, and he made the assumption that since the money was sitting here, it wasn't money that's needed, so let's just throw it in CalPERS. I'm not sure that assumption is correct, based on some of the unknown factors, which we're not going to bring up today. So I would say I think it is a good idea, and that he's on a committee that is going to be looking at this closer. So it just felt like it was a rushed. We need to make a recommendation. The Finance Commission, and it felt rushed to me, like they hadn't thought through all the risks and what's the best way to do this. So I think waiting till December is a better idea.
Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor Hudes?
Yeah, I agree that it would be good to have the benefit of the Finance Commission with the full discussion. I think it was a little bit truncated during that meeting. And then I went back to look for minutes, and they're not posted yet. And it was very difficult to follow the audio recording because there's no index. And so I listened to it again, and I reached the conclusion that I think it would be better to consider this after the Finance Commission does another round on it, but not indefinitely. So I like the idea of bringing this back in December. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at on it. I don't see us trying to make a decision on the fly tonight on it. Of course, we have to do something with the money, but a one-way decision doesn't make sense to me tonight.
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilmember Bristow.
Thank you. Yeah, I would prefer to maintain flexibility when we can. And, I think I did listen to the Finance Commission meeting, and I think they're all working very hard. But I agree with Councilmember Rennie that, a statement that the assumption that the money was in the 115 because we don't need it at all, given uncertainty, I would prefer to maintain flexibility while we can, and I think the mid-year is a much better time to get that information in and figure out what we want to pay, which is a one-way payment. So I would be in favor of not making a change right now.
Okay, so I'm hearing consensus on this. Is this direction, or do you need a motion? Or just direction?
Direction is appropriate. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Direction is just enough. Thank
Okay,
you very much.
Perfect. Does anybody have anything more to add? See nothing more to add. We could close this item out. And thank you so much. This meeting's adjourned.